this wonderful group of change makers as your chair. So I owe a debt of gratitude to each of you who individually and collectively worked to see the vision we began with a year ago come to fruition. If you recall last year when we met at the Contra Costa Country Club, and I stood before you and I said unapologetically that we need diversity in our membership. More diverse in terms of size, geographic reach, and to provide value to those companies and nonprofits owned and serving our communities of color. The EBLC mission is to drive policy to increase economic vitality and quality of life. So each of our task forces almost act like mini think tanks, and where we design, author, and promote policy. The language in those policies incorporates the knowledge and lived experience of the people in the room. It is reflective of the people in the room. And so I ask you, who's in the room? So better yet, who is not in the room? The question I posed last year was to increase economic vitality and quality of life for whom? And I didn't stop there. I suggested that this idea of who is in a room while the policy is being written should be a concept each of us incorporates in our own organizations. In order for us to drive policy as a collective organization, we all need to do our part as individual organizations and companies. Each of your organization's systems drive policy. People drive policy. The collective implementation of those policies make up the system. So we think predictive. Who would have thought that life as we know it would come to an immediate halt? The advent of COVID-19 brought about detrimental impacts that are virtually indescribable. Some have been far more severe than others, and as business owners and leaders, for profit and nonprofit, it was pretty scary. So how do we as leaders in EBLC pivot to an environment where economic vitality takes second fiddle to quality of life? As it should, but policies were changing daily, from legislation to government orders to our own company HR policies that we thought would never change, policies we thought would take years to legislate. New policy addressed new circumstances such as working from home, IT ergonomics, computer use, phone, internet, reimbursements, etc. The list goes on. But what should be noted is our resilience, particularly right here at the EBLC. So while it's not over, I want you to know you're doing it. The impact of COVID-19 on our member organizations have not been too drastic for the most part. Those member organizations that did suffer reached out, and we did what we could to help them receive the help they need. I applaud you for your steadfastness in the storm of uncertainty. And I applaud your morality in keeping your staff employed and working in unprecedented ways. I applaud you for developing new ways to drive down costs and increase revenue that you would permanently implement. And I applaud all our nonprofits who thought out of the box to continue to meet the needs of their constituents. This is what leaders do. But let's think about the room. If the impact of COVID-19 was not enough, we're also in the midst of this civil uprising, in large part due to a system designed to persecute Blacks in our society. A system made up of implemented policies that were likely designed and authored by a collective unit. I ask you again, who do you think was in that room? Or better yet, who was not in that room while the policies were being written? So I suggest to you that those who are suffering the most were not. And instead of fixing bad policy, too often as a society, we spend more time arguing on whether the design and implementation was purposeful or a legitimate form of oversight. Who cares? I have my own opinion, but I know that we can only stop an immediate problem and rewrite policy with diverse groups of people in the room. And as always, we have to overcome the inertia that prevents meaningful policy change and inclusion. We think about the depth of layers. So as wrap this up, we couldn't have predicted our current state of being. However, we kicked off our year with the reflective message that we are to be a premier organization of leaders driving policy that promotes economic vitality and quality of life for all. then we need to acknowledge who is in the room, or better yet, who is not in the room. Thank you all for allowing me to serve you. Thank you all for allowing me to represent you. Thank you all for making this region a better place for next generation. And I want to welcome Ken Mintz, who's going to take the lead